Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of CKCB Futures, which is the interview show that we have. so, but this is actually the second part of the episode. Well, right now, as we record this, it's the current episode on Maxim Gelman, the chucklehead who went on a 28-hour long stabbing spree, killed, what was it, 4 people?
I want to say it was 4 or 5, something like that.
Four
Yeah.
people.
And then he gets taken out. He gets taken down by a local badass civilian who was just on the subway when he was on his way to work. Joe motherfucking Lozito. What's up, Joe? We got him.
Thank you for that intro. I appreciate that. And I just want to say I listened to that episode that you just did, and I got a lot of laughs about it. And I appreciate all the kind words from both of you. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. I mean, the points that we brought up were very valid. It's like it wasn't our job to protect him. Well, it says so right on your damn car.
Well, trust me, when that was brought to my attention, I basically said the same thing. Like, isn't that on the cars? And then they said, actually, no, they took it off the cars because when people were suing, because of people like me, when people were suing the police, they were saying it's right on your cars. So they actually took it off the cars. And now I believe the only place where you see to protect and serve, or to serve and protect something of in that neighborhood is on their website. But that's it. It's not on their cars anymore. So
no, we'd want to advertise like, hey, we have a job to do or anything.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, it's sad because, like you brought it up in the episode, my sister, she's a retired NYPD cop. I have friends who are either still on the job or retired. My nephew and his fiance they just started on the job. And, my contention has always been that if you put 95% of the force on that train that day that's not named Terrence Howell or Tamara Taylor, I'm just another guy, because they had every opportunity to stop this before it started. Yep. They're interviewing me afterwards because they want to know what I saw, not because of what I did or didn't do, and it's sad because, for myself, like, I was always raised a certain way, like, you respect the police and all this other stuff. Like, my mom always tells a story when I was like 4 or 5 years old. We were in Queens. We were just, my mom and my aunts used to go shopping, before women worked, we would go like on these stores on the streets, and we were walking down the street and I saw a police officer and I was just in awe. Like, I don't know if it was the uniform or whatever. And it's nothing I never wanted to be, but you grow up with a certain respect for the position and everything, I guess, until you have a reason not to.
Right.
But like, even to this day, I know a lot of people, it's easy to just paintbrush an entire, in this case, police force or an entire workforce or an occupation based on the actions of one or two people. And I've never been that way, because I do believe with different personnel on that train, I think the story would probably have been different. Not everybody is a coward like Terrence Howell.
Yeah, you would have just gone to work and gone home and had dinner.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. So, but it was not meant to be.
And like I said on the episode, like, I have no problem with the cops in general. There are some that are way better at their job and way worse at their job. It's no different than, a fry cook. You got people that are good and people that just suck. And unfortunately, when the cops suck, they end up on the news for it.
Right.
So sometimes they suck and end up on the news, and there's lies being told.
Yep.
They tell the wrong story. So yeah, I mean, hey, you know what I always say? Like, as far as police go, I really believe this. I really believe there's probably 5 to 10% of pieces of shit.
Yep.
And there's probably 5 to 10% of people who legitimately want to be heroes. And then I think the other 80% or so, they just want to do their job.
They just want to be left alone.
Just be left alone. If stuff happens, they'll take care of it. But ultimately, they're doing it. It's a job. It's a paycheck. It's a good pension and everything. And if shit happens, they'll take care of it. You know, I believe that. I do believe certain people take the job because they want to be a hero and they may have the opportunity to do so. But, you know, in terms of an occupation, it is a good job. You know, even starting salary, I don't think they get paid enough. But if you go 25 years, whatever it is now, to get your retirement, I do believe most cops would do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you on that.
So we also have, we just kind of dove right into this. Kevin, the History Goon, is back with us because he actually hosted that episode that we did when we covered Gelman. So, I that'd be pretty shitty of me to do if I said, "Hey, I got Joe Lozito, but you can't come back on."
Fuck you, Kevin. I would like to take the opportunity to apologize if some of the information that I had in there is outdated now, because like I said, I wrote that episode in like 2018 when I was first starting. I want to say that was in like the first like 30 or 40 episodes we did when I was still trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. Yeah, I mean, I think it was still pretty good, but
I think a lot of the info was accurate. Like I said before we started recording, some of the ways you described what happened in terms of my involvement, I wish really happened. I like it better than what really happened. Unfortunately, I did not get the opportunity to smash his head on the subway floor multiple times, although I wish I did. So that part made me laugh. But I do think for the most part, you did a very good job.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, I didn't even know. I'd never heard of the case before. I thought that I had. Toward the beginning, I thought that I had, but as it went along, I'm like, no, I don't know this case. But
I don't know. I know that for a period of time, because when it happened in New York, and at the time I was living in Philadelphia, so I know in New York, because that's where all the murders took place. Obviously, it was a big story here, and I know in Philadelphia it was a big story because of my involvement in it. And I wasn't sure how big of a story it was outside of those two areas, but you know, there were times where people would stop me. I'd be at, you know, go to UFC event or a hockey game or something in another state, and people would recognize me, and it would blow my mind. So I guess for a short period of time, it was a pretty big story. But I think, like everything else, it just becomes part of a news cycle. So if you're not paying attention during a specific period of time, it's easy to not ever hear of it.
yeah. So one thing I was wondering is, you get on that subway car and you're on your way into work or whatever. At this point, you know, because we saw the other car that that Gelman was on before he got into the one that you were on. He had the woman with with the newspaper.
That actually, if I could correct you, that actually did not happen on a subway. That actually happened at it happened. No, it actually happened at a subway station. That happened at 96th Street subway station. So that part did not happen on the actual subway. The woman was standing at the station waiting for the subway, and he approached her while she was reading the paper and basically confronted her and knocked the paper out of her hand. But thankfully, he didn't do anything. So that part actually didn't happen on the subway. It happened at a subway station.
Okay, well that's kind of reminiscent of that's kind of reminiscent of how Richard Ramirez got caught.
Yeah. I guess there's a pattern to the madness. I don't know.
But they beat that dude's ass all over the street too.
Oh no, it was like a scene in a movie. It's just like where the entire town's after chasing one dude.
It makes you wish they had closed circuit TV back then to watch the footage of that, like just this guy getting his shit kicked in with a stop sign or whatever they got a hold of.
But
I'll tell you what, if they would have let Gelman in the streets of Brooklyn, that's exactly what would have happened to him.
Oh yeah, he would have fucking lasted.
We were kind of touching on that. We were asking, when I asked him about if the gangs had started looking for this guy, but it was just too fast.
The Brighton Beach population of Brooklyn is mostly Russian, and they're very close knit. And I'm pretty sure if they didn't put him in jail but let him out in Brighton Beach somewhere, I'm pretty sure it would have been handled differently.
Oh yeah.
So at that point when you're on the subway, are you aware of Gelman at this point? Like
Well,
before he tried to hijack the train. And by the way, what are you going to do with a hijacked train?
well, all right. So,
I'm going to blow
I'll
right
answer
through the
your
next
first
stop.
question first. I'll answer your second question first. Obviously, if you have half a brain, you know that the subway runs on tracks,
Right.
and there's a start and an end. So
Turn
I don't know
left.
what.
There's a wall there.
Yeah, so I don't exactly know what his plan was to hijack the subway. It was going to take him to a certain point, and he's not going to drive through the wall and keep going. It's going to stop at a certain point.
Yeah,
But
It's not like they have radios
this
to
isn't
be
the
like,
Road
hey.
Runner, where
Exactly.
they paint a tunnel on a mountain, and
Yes, that's a great example. So essentially, hijacking a subway is the worst mode of transportation to hijack if you're thinking of escaping. Okay, so that's already been established. But to
or a
answer your
tugboat.
first question, I actually had no idea because while it was in the papers that morning in New York, I was commuting from Philadelphia. So it hadn't reached the news cycle for us in Philadelphia yet. So I say I was probably the only one on the subway in that car that had no idea who he was. And I know two people at least knew who he was based on what I saw firsthand. And the first thing when he approached the door to try to get in, and then he turned around and walked away. Two things happened that I know people knew who he was, because the first thing was when he went back and he sat down, there was a woman that he sat right next to. She got up. I don't even think his ass hit the seat. And she was up and she just walked away. And then the other thing was there was a guy standing next to me, and he's the guy that went right to the door because he saw the cops go in there. Now he knew who Gelman was because he looks like he's in a panic. He's trying to be discreet about tapping on the window, trying to get the cops to come out. He's like tapping on the window, looking over his shoulder, tapping on the window in a panic, waving them out. This is all happening in front of me. It's literally right in front of me, and I'm sitting here going, what the fuck is going on? So
this is official business.
Yeah, well, he actually said he was a police officer. He goes, I'm a police officer.
That fucking Fruit Loop couldn't pass for a police officer anywhere.
Right. I mean, so like I said, I think I was the only one in the car that day that didn't know who he was. And I can vouch that, and I also met someone who was in the car afterwards. So I know 3 people knew who he was, but I'm pretty sure everybody did except me.
So he starts in and everything. He starts, it's like, what's going through your mind as this guy's like it's like trying to hijack the plane, and at some point he starts waving a knife around, and obviously he makes eye contact with you. But take us right up to the moment before, what's going through your head before he actually engaged with you.
So when he
before
first
you
went
engaged
up,
with him.
Yeah, when he first went up and knocked on the door, I just chalked it up to a guy that was probably out all night. It was Friday night into Saturday morning. I just chalked it up to some guy that was probably out all night, being stupid, whatever. He looked dirty. He looked like he probably was out all night. Now, of course, we know that he was.
He was.
We didn't realize what he was up to. So I thought that was weird. But again, it was a Friday night before. This was a Saturday morning. So I kind of just said, well, whatever. But obviously it raises a red flag. Right. When the guy that I just mentioned, who was standing next to me, came right after him and is trying to get the cops to come out, that's kind of when everything was like, all right, what the fuck is going on? And then it really happened so quickly when Gelman got up to start walking back towards the door, the guy that was next to me kind of hightailed it right back next to me. It's taking me longer to tell you the story than it actually took for it to happen. And then before Gelman reached to go to the door again, that's when he stopped in front of me and we made eye contact. He told me, you're going to die. And that's when he took the knife out. It wasn't that he was waving it around. He didn't take it out until he he did. He plunged it into my face. So I didn't really have time to digest everything. It happened very quickly. And, once someone puts a knife in your cheek, you kind of know it's on. And then you have 2 choices. You can try to fight, or you can turtle. And I don't blame anyone. I mean, it's sort of, like I always say, the reason why I fought back is for my family. Like I have a wife and I have 2 kids, and my kids at the time were 10 and 7, and it's not. It was just instinct that I said, okay, well, this guy, it's a fight, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a fight. He happens to have a weapon, I don't. But at that moment in time, I didn't feel like I wanted to turtle and let him, carve me to ribbons. I mean, he did a good job of that anyway, but I wasn't ready to not at least put up a fight to get off that train.
So when he so okay, so you didn't bash his head into the floor,
No.
unfortunately.
Yes,
Can,
unfortunately.
can we edit that in and just go and just run with that narrative? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, just use the clip from your this episode that's out now. Just use that clip. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I wish I did have the opportunity to bash his head on the floor, but I didn't. But that's why I said I liked your account better.
Again, I say, damn you, A&E.
Yeah. Well, A&E. Hey, let me tell you something about that A&E documentary. That documentary is so full of shit that it drives me crazy. So they interviewed me for 3 hours and they used about 40 seconds of me. And again, it's not about me. It's not. I'm a small part in this. I always say that. I'm not looking.
You're the hero of the story.
Well, okay, and I appreciate that, but let me say this: 4 people were murdered, or
Right.
other people injured. So I don't want to be the focal point of the story. All I ever wanted from them was to tell the truth. And from the minute that show started, and they do the quick hits in the beginning where they have the quick interviews with people, and the one lady said, "Oh, if it wasn't for the police, who knows what would have happened?" Well, then right away I knew exactly where they were going with it. So again, I don't care. You can use 40 seconds of footage even though we recorded 3 hours, but just tell the truth. And
Yeah.
I knew from that moment on they weren't going to tell the truth. And I basically tell people, if you watch that, watch it with the understanding that it's basically a 52-minute infomercial for the police.
Yep.
Another documentary was done called Killing Spree. It was done in England. It aired pretty much all over the world except for US, of course, which is on my Twitter page. I post it every day. That's a documentary that was done after A&E. So if people want to watch and get an actual account of what happened, I would recommend going to my Twitter page and clicking on the documentary, because that's an actual account of what happened.
Yeah.
And a lot of those crime documentaries that come out of the UK are actually really well done, and they don't bullshit you like a lot of the ones here.
I was just thinking that too.
When they contacted me, so after the A&E thing, I was like, fuck this, like, I don't care. Again, it's a horrible story. It's a horrible story. I just happen to be the end of the story, but the story itself is awful. 4 people died.
Right.
So I in no way, shape, or form should I be a focal point of the story. Obviously, yeah, I come in at the end. But when they contacted me, I said, listen, this documentary just came out 6 months ago, and it was essentially a waste of my time. Like, I gave up 3 hours of my day just sitting there, to probably closer to 4, but with travel and everything. And I'm not ready to do that unless I get some assurances. And they were very forthcoming right from the beginning, basically saying, well, there's only so much we can do. And I said, okay. And I said, you know what? They kind of they were very interested. And I said, okay, you're either going to make it or break it for future people that want to interview me for documentaries, because if this happens again, I'm done. And they did an amazing job. And it was actually it wasn't just a documentary on him. It was a whole series called Killing Spree. And the ironic thing is, usually this production company, their series usually get picked up by Discovery ID here in the States, but this one was never picked up. So that's why I post it, so people, if they want to see what really happened, they can watch it.
So, so just in your own words, what happened?
All right. So, all right. So get comfortable. Yeah. So I'll take you through everything. So I get on the subway. I travel from Philly. I drive to Jersey, get on the New Jersey Transit, take New Jersey Transit into Penn Station, which is right under Madison Square Garden, if people aren't familiar with it. And eventually get on the subway, get on the 3 train, and I always sit in the front or the back because it seems like it's always the least crowded. A lot of times people come up in the middle and they just stay there. This day I just happened to be in the front, and I ended up sitting. Basically, the only thing separating me from the motorman is a wall. I was right there in the front. I was the first seat in the train. And normally on the subway, the doors close. They're open for 20 seconds, and they close. This time, the doors were open for a while, and 2 cops get on. And cops get on the subway all the time, but normally they stay within the car and they go station to station or whatever. But this time, these cops went in with the motorman. Some people call him the engineer. When on the subways, they're called motormen. They went in with the motorman. So now the doors close, and now the train starts to go. But it's like everything else. It's physics. You start off slow, and then you pick up speed.
Right.
We started off slow, and we stayed slow. And we were crawling, which I was like, okay, this is weird, right? But whatever. So now all of a sudden, here comes this guy. He goes to the door. I'm right there by the door. This guy comes, he bangs on the door and says, "Let me in, I'm the police." Thinking the only person in there is the motorman, but actually on the other side are 2 cops, and there's a window there. So it's easier to see out of the window. So the cops are now looking at the guy there on the train to arrest. Okay. So instead of coming out, Terrence Howell says, "You're not the police." And without incident, Maksim Gelman turns around and walks towards the middle of the car. He sits down, like I said. The woman that was there got right up. She moves. He's sitting down now. Now, I said, the guy next to me, he hightails it to the door. He's tapping on the window, trying to be as discreet as possible, and tapping on the window, looking over his shoulder, tapping on the window, looking over his shoulder, till finally Gelman starts walking back. So guy comes right back, stands next to me. Gelman comes walking back towards the door. He's like 3 feet from the door, 2 feet from me. He looks down. I look up. We make eye contact. He says, "You're going to die. You're going to die." Reaches into behind his jacket, whips out this 8-inch knife, and goes pop right here in the cheek. So as he brings his arm back, that's when I made my move. Like I tried to. So I've never trained in mixed martial arts. I've taken some kickboxing, but this was well after this incident happened. But I watched it forever. So there's a move called the single leg takedown. It's the easy way, well, not easy, but it's a way to get your opponent down. Figuring if I can get him down, then get on top of him, I probably have a better chance than hand-to-hand combat standing up while he's got a knife.
Right.
But I shot in too high, and I wrapped my arms around his waist, so it actually became more like a football tackle. So while it was effective in taking him down, my whole head was exposed. So that's when he was just like getting me in the head, stabbed me in the head 3 times, like carving me up. But I did get to take him down. So now I'm on top of him. I'm in dominant position. He's on the bottom looking up at me. I'm looking down at him. But he's still got the knife. Like he's so jacked up on drugs at this point. Like you probably could have hit him with a semi and he would have still had the knife in his hand.
He was all, so he's like crack and PCP. He was.
Yeah. So he's just loaded. So he's still got the knife in his hand. He's a righty, and I'm a righty, but I got to try to stop it now with my left hand. So he's still flailing up at me, trying to stab me. So first time he does it, I try to catch his wrist. I miss, and he slices me in the webbing here of the thumb, where the thumb meets the hand.
Ow. God, that hurt.
It's like the ultimate paper cut.
Yeah.
Second time he does it, I miss, and he gets me in the tricep. Finally, the third time, I catch his wrist. I slam it down, the knife comes out, and then all of a sudden, I get the tap on the shoulder from the cop. He taps me on the shoulder, and he goes, "You can get up now. We got him." Right? So now I'm bleeding. Like, I'm bleeding.
Profusely, probably.
Yeah, and I don't really know, because what's happening is the way I'm positioned, it's going inside, like, my jacket. So I don't know the way that I am, because it's winter. So I have a collared shirt on with a tie, and I have a jacket on. So it's kind of going inside here. I don't realize how bad it is until I actually get up, because now when I get up and I go to sit down, I'm kind of hunched over, like trying to catch my breath, trying to fucking make sense of what just happened. So I'm hunched over, and now it's coming out, and it's just kind of like dripping from both sides of my head. And I've said it a million times. The best way to make an example of this is next time you take a shower, just put your back to the shower head and let it hit you in the part of your neck where it meets the shoulders. And as the water just drips down both sides of your chest, that's what it looked like. It was just coming down like crazy.
Damn.
So I'm sitting there, and Terrence Howell's useless. Even more useless is Tamara Taylor. Gelman he's still squirrely, and he's trying to get away. So you have two cops on there. One cop is trying to handcuff him. The other cop is so stupid and useless. She doesn't even get down on her knees and try to help. She's just sitting there going, should I mace him? Should I mace him? And to Howell's credit, he's like, no, it's going to stay in the car. There's no ventilation. So he's like, no.
I've been in proximity of when somebody gets pepper sprayed. I mean, it wasn't sprayed at me, but it might as well have been because I was so close to it when it happened, and it just goes everywhere.
Speaking from experience, getting pepper sprayed fucking sucks.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
All right. So I've never had the pleasure, but this is again someone who went through the police academy, should know better, and still says, should I mace him? And thankfully he said no. Right. So she still doesn't do anything. And this guy, who I'll talk about later, a passenger, went over and helped Howell handcuff Gelman. Now, somebody pulled the emergency brake, and we're in the tunnel. So you can't open the doors. Can't get me out of there because we're right in between stops. And we're sitting there, and we're not moving. And I'm sitting there, and I got my life pouring out of the back of my head. And Nobody seems to give a shit. More cops come on from the back of the train, and they go right to Howell and Gelman and Taylor, and I'm just like, all right, So we're sitting there, and we're sitting there, and we're sitting there some more, and we're not moving.
And you're getting dizzy.
I'm telling myself, like, I don't know, and I say this in every interview I do. And one of these days I will actually look it up. I'm actually telling myself to stay calm because I kind of feel like if I get myself amped up, my heart's going to beat faster and maybe the blood comes out faster. I don't know if that's true. But in the moment I said, I'm trying to calm myself down. So cops are walking around, and my head's down. I'm not even looking up at this point. I just grab one of their wrists, and I go, what's going on? We got to move. And they're like, don't worry, we're going to move. And I was like, do you have kids?
Well, it's not our responsibility to move
you. I didn't find that out later. I didn't find that out until later. And I'm like, do you have kids? And they go, yeah. I'm like, I got 2 kids. I said, I can't die on this train. No, don't worry. We're going to get it moving, right? I wait some more. Still not moving, right? Another cop walks by, grab again. Hey, are you married? Yeah, I'm married. I said, I got a wife. I got to get off this train. I can't die on this train. Don't worry. The paramedics are on their way. And I go, well, how are they going to get here? And he says, you see the way we came on the train from the back? They're going to get on in the back and come this way. So now in my head, I'm like, all right, so hopefully I'm not dead before they get here. But okay, it's a little bit of relief because at that point, I had to take them at their word. I didn't know. Right.
There's nothing you can do.
So the person that helped Howell handcuff Gelman, I later found out is Alfred Douglas. And Alfred Douglas, people call me a hero and all that other stuff. And I say Alfred Douglas is my hero because what Alfred Douglas did was everyone was just kind of looking at me. And Alfred Douglas came up and he actually, I don't want to say yelling, but was pretty forceful going, nobody's going to help this guy. You're all ready to watch this man die in front of you. No one's going to help him. And Alfred doesn't know me from Adam. And he puts his hand on my deepest wound. Now, aside from the fact that it must look absolutely disgusting, he doesn't know my skin's basically flapping. He applies pressure to the wound. He did it. He didn't know me. He doesn't know if I have AIDS or anything like that. He didn't even think about it. He just did it.
He's just a good person.
That's my hero. And a woman gave him some napkins or tissues, and he applied it, but it was bleeding so badly within 3 seconds. I'm sure it was just saturated.
Yeah.
So, and he's trying to calm me down. He's like, doing like, that's why I say Alfred is my hero.
And that's the thing is like nothing I watched even mentioned that guy.
No, nobody mentions Alfred except me, which is why I make sure I mention him in every episode. Every interview I do, I mention Alfred Douglas because he's the hero.
You stay in touch with him?
No, we did. We talked once or twice, and I believe one of the news stations in Philly, they were going to try to get us together, and I kind of just left it up to them. But nothing ever materialized from it. And like I always say, we had that one moment. I don't know what we talk about. He'd probably be like, "All right, stop thanking me. Stop thanking me." After a while, he'd probably be like, "All right, I wish I didn't help you live." But no, it's like what do I say to the guy who I credit with saving my life? Like, what do you say to someone like that?
I couldn't tell you.
No, I think he's a stud. He's an absolute hero, and the police are never going to mention him. Nobody's ever going to mention him. So that's why I do it, because, like I always say, you can get your account from other people, or you can get your account from the person who was there. Right. Nobody mentions Alfred. I mention Alfred. So
he probably didn't even make it in the police report. It was probably like, civilian 2 or whatever attempted to render aid or something. There's nothing ever mentioned like that.
And they interviewed him because I met a nice woman that was also on the subway, and she came to my job. She was at my job constantly before I came back, trying to meet me and thank me. And I met her, and she said the police interviewed everybody that was on the train, so they know what Alfred did. They know exactly what Alfred did, but they never give him credit. And again, I don't blame the cops. I blame the cops' boss, people in charge. You want to put a narrative out there. To go into it saying that Alfred did this and Alfred did that doesn't help your narrative.
Well, how soon after this happened, after you healed up, did you start talking to the media?
Well, let me just finish the onboard stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because I like that question too. So all of a sudden the train starts moving. And I go, I like, with whatever energy I had left, I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, whoa, what about the paramedics? They just told me the paramedics are coming from the back of the train.
From the back of the train.
And they go, oh, they're going to meet you at 42nd Street, which is the next stop.
Out of here.
Right? So I'm like, okay. I'm at everyone's mercy, right? So I'm like, okay.
I mean, I'm trying to envision, it just, desperation. It's like you're trying to keep yourself calm, but at the same time, more and more time is going on. The story keeps changing, and your desperation is probably starting to settle in, and I can't imagine.
I'm bleeding out for 20 minutes or so, and all I want to do is get to a hospital so I can see my family, and I'm getting a runaround. Frustration is a good word. We pull into 42nd Street. They had cleared the station, so the only people that were on the platform were the paramedics for me and more cops. So they open the door. Paramedics come on to attend to me. More cops come on. They get Gelman off. He's off the subway. So when the they brought the stretcher on, they helped me off the seat, and they helped put me on the stretcher. And as soon as they picked me up, I passed out, but not completely. I could still hear everything, but it was like, I always say, it's kind of like if you're watching TV and you're starting to fall asleep and you could still hear the TV if your eyes are closed. So it was for a few seconds. And while this is happening, Tamara Taylor, the other cop, is talking to other cops behind me. And I hear her call me likely, which you guys touched on. Okay. Mm-hmm. So she calls me likely. And I remember.
But you didn't know what that meant at the time.
No idea what it meant. Okay. Mm-hmm. I wake up right then and there, like I snap out of it. It's the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Because now I had the adrenaline dump. Now everything is, my head's on fire. Like I can't even describe the pain other than shave your head, pour gas on your head, and light a match. Because that's the only way I could try to equate the pain. Like, I'm not sitting here going, it stung a little bit, but I handled it. No, it fucking hurt, man. It was,
it's just a flesh wound.
Not like you got a cardboard cut or something,
I will say
your arm's off. No, it isn't.
I will say this. You know how people say I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy? I would wish this on my worst enemy. That's how bad it was, right? So they get me on there. We go to the hospital. Thank God it was a Saturday morning because the paramedics were great. Side note on this, I actually met one of the paramedics by chance at a restaurant here on Long Island a few years back. Just by chance, they sat us next to each other. His kid was looking at my scars. And I was like, I said to the guy, I'm like, listen, if he's not freaked out by it, he can ask me whatever he wants. I don't know. And he starts smiling. He goes, I know who you are. And I go, why would you know who I am? He goes, I was one of the medics that day. And I was blown away. Absolutely blown away. Awesome. He was one of the paramedics. So, I mean, it was just chance that we would be sitting next to each other at a restaurant. But so I digress. So those guys were great. They got me to the hospital right away. They wheel me in. They bring me in this room. There's like what seemed like 20 doctors. They're cutting my clothes off because they don't know where else I've been stabbed. Like you could see all the head stuff in the face and my arm. You could see all that, but they don't know if I got stabbed or anything else. So they're cutting off my clothes. They hooked me up to morphine. Thank God right away. It kicked in pretty quickly.
Yep.
So I'm lying there while all this is going on, and a cop comes to the head of the bed, which I think it was a bed. It might have just been a platform, to be honest. I don't even remember. And he shows me the mugshot of Gelman. And he goes, is this the guy that did this to you? And I said, yeah. And he goes, oh, you're a hero. And I go, I'm not a hero. Why am I a hero? And he goes, well, he killed 4 people last night. And I always say that's kind of like the slow motion part of the movie where it's just like zoom out of my face. Like to this day, I still don't. How do you react to that? Like you're men. Like when you were boys, you wrestle with your buddies. Even maybe you do it today. It's none of my business. But say I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. But that's just horsing around. I literally had someone tell me I was gonna die and meant to do it. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's probably the reality of everything. That probably hit you like a ton of bricks, and it's just I can only imagine. Actually, you know what? I kind of have, definitely not to the extent that you have it, but I kind of have an experience with that. I mentioned earlier that I had an encounter with a serial killer. Well, this was back in 2000, and I didn't know. I didn't know it for years until I was listening to a podcast episode, a very detailed one about the serial killer. It was Ronald Dominique from New Orleans. And I'm like, he starts describing his MO and how he, picked men, how he would, run his MO on men because he was gay. I'm not gay, but
not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. But
that's a Seinfeld line. I didn't know if you guys watched it.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But so I start thinking about things that this creep had said to me. I mean, when it happened, it creeped me out, but I didn't think anything of it. Just because I was performing in a bar frequented by mostly women and gay men, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Hey, you're a good-looking guy. He's only human.
But so he came up and started trying to get me to come home with him, and I'm like, no, get the fuck away. But I didn't think anything of it after that because I was married at the time, and my wife was also a stripper. So I'd heard creepy stripping stories, hundreds of times or whatever. So I didn't think anything more of it. So I'm listening to this podcast. The MO starts sounding familiar to me and everything. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to Google this guy. Google image search. It was him. It was the dude.
Wow.
And just like 20 some odd years later, this happened in 2000. I made the connection in 2022, I think it was. Yeah, 2022. Damn. And so I had to pull. I'm a truck driver. Yeah. I had to pull off the side of the road because I was like, holy shit, this fucker killed 23 people.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
But it's just, I mean, I'd like to think that even if I was gay, I wouldn't have gone home with him because he's just an ugly little spud-looking potato man.
You could do better.
I'm not gay, but if I was, I could do better than you.
Yeah, you could do better than that. Of course. But
No, I think the only time I ever had anybody threaten to kill me and mean it, he ended up bleeding on the ground. And then I recently ran into him at the auto parts store that he works in, and he would not talk to me. I'm going to fucking kill you. And I'm like, okay. He hit me once. I was like, okay, cool. And then I just beat the brakes off him and left him outside the bar.
well, there you go.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys are catching it or not, but every once in a while, when I breathe, you get like a whistle. I've okay. I'm glad it's not picking it up. In my early 20s, I was kind of a dickhead, and I would go out and I would just pick bar fights with people. And I only lost one of the many that I got into, and that was a dude that was like 6'6", about 400 pounds. He walked by the girl I was with at the time, and he grabbed her ass, and I went outside and I slapped him in the face, and then I woke up in the bed of my truck. And I was like, what? One of my buddies is there. I'm like, what the fuck happened? And he goes, yeah, that guy you hit, he knocked you out and then carried you out of the bar and put you in your truck. I'm like, oh, thanks. That's nice.
That was nice of him.
Yeah, it was nice of him putting you rather than leaving you out in the street and
Yep.
whatnot.
Laid me on my side and everything just in case I threw up. And like,
Put a pillow there for you.
I ran into him a couple weeks later and actually bought him a beer.
Well, it was.
Like,
I mean, after what he did for you, absolutely.
Yeah.
Respect. You kicked my ass. I appreciate that. I need it once in a while.
A wise man named Jeremy Yablonsky once said, "If you're winning all your fights, you're not fighting the right people."
Right.
Yep.
That's it.
Man. So when he was stabbing you in the back of the head, he didn't hit like your neck or anything like that?
Oh, thank God. I say that all the time.
He had to have been so close, right?
Yeah, I mean, he got me on the side here. He got me up here. And then the one was close. I mean, there was one close that I guess not close enough, but close enough because that was when the dust settled and I kind of replayed the incident in my head. I realized that, he cuts my spinal cord. I'm done. Yep. Because then I'm there. He could do whatever he wants. If I have no movement in my arms or legs, I'm done. So
yeah,
it was, I guess, close enough for too close for my liking, but maybe not medically close enough for me to be in danger of having a spinal cord sever. But yeah, no, I'm very lucky about that. Or else
yeah, I mean, because like head injuries like that, they'll bleed like crazy. But thankfully, there's nothing. As long as he doesn't get into your skull, there's nothing there, unless he hits like, obviously your face or whatever. But man, that. Phew. Yeah, you think you had somebody looking out for you in that situation because, like, holy shit, so
You're
close.
Not kidding. The one, my deepest wound, the one I was telling you about with Alfred, I didn't know it at the time. I saw a picture of it at the ADA's office, and that one is the one where I tell people, if you think about those rubber Halloween masks, and you got the rubber at the end, and you got to tuck it into your shirt, and it's flapping. That's the part that was kind of flapping. And in that picture, you could actually see part of my skull, but there was no damage to it, but you could actually see part of the skull. So,
damn.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, you were right there to be a number 5 and
no question. No, I mean, what you said is right. I mean, as far as someone looking out for me, you could say whatever you want, like, oh, I fought back. I did this, I did that. Yeah, I did everything I could possibly do. But even with all that, it doesn't make a difference if nobody's looking out for me. So someone was definitely keeping an eye on me, and I had help in there, even though I don't know who it was.
And I mean, you can't really blame anybody else on the train either for not stepping in, because this dickhead has a knife, and he was a fairly big dude, wasn't he? He was like 6 foot-ish somewhere in there.
I think he was like 6 foot, 6'1", probably a $170, a $180. No, and what you said is right. I don't blame anybody. Like I tell people all the time, when he first stabbed me in the face, it was a full subway car. By the time I got up, everybody else was in the next car pretty much. There were some people that were still there, but they were towards the back door. And no, God, no, I don't blame anybody for not getting involved. I mean, first of all, like I said earlier when you asked me, everybody on the train probably knew who he was. So they're aware of what he's done. They're aware that they're on a train with a murderer. And now they're seeing him firsthand try to murder someone. So I don't blame anybody for not jumping in. I don't blame anybody that wasn't a
Any
police
civilian.
officer
Police officer.
that had a gun for not
Yeah.
jumping in. Any civilian, I don't blame anybody for not jumping in. Terrence Howell and Tamara Taylor, that's a different story.
Where either one of them could have stepped in with a collapsible baton and smashed his head like a fucking rotten pumpkin, and they did nothing about it.
If when Gelman knocked on the door, this is true. Again, firsthand knowledge. We're being right there. When Gelman first knocked on the door, Howell, I'm 6'2". Howell has to be 6'4", maybe 6'5". He's a big dude. If Howell had opened the door and just pointed his gun at Gelman's head, and I've had people say, well, what if he misses? He couldn't miss. He was that close. Touching. He was that close. If Howell opens the door and points his gun at Gelman's head, all that's on the train is me, other people, and brain matter. Because he couldn't miss. It was that close. Yeah. But he chose to,
do nothing.
Save himself, I guess. Just people say guns make people brave. Not all people.
No.
So,
No.
Oh, I mean, but that just, I don't know. I think that whole part of that, which I think that's where you're headed to next, is about the police, your court case and everything. It's just, I would think you'd have to have, like, in order to become a police officer, there would have to be something in your personality that's going to make you on the aggressive side. I mean, and you could make the argument that some people who have that aggressive side do more than they're supposed to. And you know what? That's true.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely true. But for somebody like the two officers you're talking about, I mean that's also like the cop down there in Miami, who, when the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting was going on, he's out there hiding in his car and stuff like that. That guy should have never been a cop.
No.
Yeah. I mean, people, as you might imagine, I've been pretty vocal about this. I always say my ideal police force are jacked up guys, 6 foot and taller, just like Terminators. Okay. Mm-hmm. And just, that's it. Like, that's my ideal police force. That's my ideal military. These fucking guys who will just do whatever they have to do. Now, obviously that's excluding a certain portion of the population, but that would be my ideal police force. Right. And, but yeah, I mean, there's something to be said. I don't know anything about Terrence Howell other than what I've researched, and there's not a lot out there. I think he was disciplined once or twice. I know Tamara Taylor absolutely does not deserve to be a cop. And my favorite part of Tamara Taylor is when I had to go testify before the grand jury. I testified the same day that she did and the same day Terrence Howell did, and I went first. And when I was done testifying, I had to wait. My sister had to go to One Police Plaza for something, and my wife went with us. She went with my sister. I had to wait for my sister to get back to pick me up. I didn't know how long I was going to be, so I get out. I text her, and lo and behold, right next to me is Tamara Taylor. So she says to me, "Oh, how was it?" And I was like, it was a little intense in there, And she's like, "Yeah," and she really had no idea what to say to me. And I go, "Hey." I said, you know what I remember? I remember when we were on the subway and you called me likely, and she just froze. She says, "You remember that?" And I go, "I remember everything."
Yeah, it was kind of a fucking important moment in my life,
Well, I think what they were all counting on was me not remembering it, right? So she just, after that, wouldn't even look at me. And I just said, I remember everything. That was my favorite moment with her. And to answer your question from before, when did I start talking to the media? It was actually the day after. It was the morning after. So what happened, if you don't mind me going this way, I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to bring up, because
we want the whole story.
Yeah. Okay.
No, this isn't a 30-minute podcast.
No, that's fine. I just didn't want to, if you had a flow going, I didn't want to interrupt, because you did ask me before. So it happens in the morning. I'm in the hospital. Next morning, I'm in the room with my wife, and someone knocks on the door, and it's a reporter from the Daily News. And she said, "Are you okay? Would you mind if I ask you a few questions?" So I said, "No, it's fine." She comes in, very nice lady, and basically she says, uh, "Tell me what happened." So I start telling her the story, and as I'm telling her the story, she's getting these looks on her face, and finally she goes, "Wait a second." She goes, "You're the one who stopped him?" And I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, that's not what the police are saying." And I go, "Well, I don't know what they're saying, but this is what happened." And she goes into her bag. She takes out the Daily News. She takes out the New York Post. And these papers are like, this guy, Terrence Howell, he's a hero. There was an article in the Daily News and written, and it's actually still available if you Google search it. There was an article written in the Daily News by this guy praising Terrence Howell. He was so brave, and he didn't even have to draw his gun. Like,
yeah, it's because you were kicking his ass.
Yeah. So he writes this article about what a brave guy this Terrence Howell is, and he did it all without drawing his weapon.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh,
okay."
Door. So it was like, so yeah, so she shows me all this, and then now all of a sudden she's like, she goes, "Did you talk to anyone else?" And I go, "No, you're the first one." And she's like freaking out, and she's just listening to everything I say. And so that was the first time. So now, and keep in mind, there's a cop outside my door. So he hears everything that's going on. Okay.
So he's on the radio. We got a situation here.
well, I'll let you decide. So now she's done. She leaves. And maybe 15 minutes later, now I got a photographer and a writer from the New York Post. And they want to come in and talk to me. Right? So
you're going viral.
Yeah, well, so now I'm talking, and 10 minutes in, all of a sudden a nurse comes in and says, "You have to leave." And I go, "Why?" She goes, "She can't be here."
Oh,
I go,
shit.
"I'm saying it's okay that she's here." She goes, "No, she can't be here." So I was like, "You let the other reporter in?" And she's like, "She can't be here." And again, like, well, what happened in between the first reporter coming in and the second? I think you may have hit the nail on the head, right?
We got a situation here.
Yeah, right? So now, maybe 20 minutes later, my aunt and my cousin come to visit me, and my aunt goes, "There's a reporter from the New York Times downstairs, and they won't even let them come up," right? So I'm like, "God, are you fucking kidding me," right? So
here's my cell phone number. Give it
to
him.
Well, I told my aunt, believe it or not, I was only in the hospital a day and a half. Like, literally only a day. Like, I went in on Saturday morning. I was out Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean,
so technically it wasn't even a day and a half.
Yeah, but you got all these staples in your head and shit.
Yeah. I mean, that was good. So luckily I wasn't going through metal detector, but
they gotta scrape. They gotta scrape the wounds and make sure there's no metal filings in there from the knife and stuff. Still,
yeah. No, and I was and let me just say this about the people in Bellevue. The doctors there were excellent. They took very good care of me. Like I said, they were fantastic. So like I said, the medics that day were great. The paramedics were great. The doctors were great. So I get discharged. I go downstairs and I start talking to the Times reporter. He's like, "Yeah, as soon as I said I was with the Times, they didn't even want to let me up." So now I'm like, I said to my wife, I'm like, it has to be because the cop was sitting outside the room. He must have heard me talking to the Daily News reporter.
And we're going to protect our own. We're not going to let him talk shit about us.
Right. So
but they had to have known that once you got out of the hospital, you were going to go to them on your own.
Well, maybe they thought, like I said, maybe they don't know that I remember everything.
Yep.
Maybe they're hoping
you got concussed or something. And
I mean, listen, if you saw my head, maybe that's a possibility. I don't know. So I talked to the guy from the Times, and we're leaving now. Okay, so we're driving. So we live in Philadelphia, but my family and my wife's family are still on Long Island. And I knew I was going to have to testify that week. And obviously I wasn't going to work that week. So we just stayed at my mom's house.
My job would insist I come in.
You want to use your CTO time? No.
Well, I will say I was working at Lincoln Center at the time, and they were tremendous. They were very good to me. So again, the running theme is, with the exception of one particular organization, everybody was very good to me. We're driving home.
It was the cotton candy distributors at the arena that weren't that organization that wasn't friendly.
I wanted blue, and they just wanted to give me pink. But so we're driving home.
I'm sorry, that was really weak. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Listen, you can't hit the target if you don't shoot, right?
True.
So we're driving home, and obviously now this is a fresh, and I look like Frankenstein, and I see these people, and they're like pointing at me in the car, and like this one person like gave me the thumbs up, like people are recognizing me, I guess, and it was nice, you know. But now all of a sudden, my phone starts blowing up. And I get to my mom's house, I go on the computer, and the Daily News article has now hit the internet.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I mean, this is 2011, so I don't even know if people had smartphones back then. I had a flip phone. So now my phone starts blowing up, and it's just constant, and it's everybody that wants to talk to me and everything like that. So to make a short answer longer, that's when I started talking to the press, was when the lady from the Daily News came to the room, and then I guess once the cop or somebody heard what I was saying, then they kind of squashed any other interviews. But then once I left the room, they couldn't
Yeah, they couldn't stop you.
Yeah, so that was it. But that's when I first started talking to the media. And then it was just like, you know, the one thing I'll say is I spoke to so many people, and thanks to people like you that I get to still speak to and tell the story and get the story out there. I'm really happy to say that, you know, my story has stayed the same right from the beginning. And the reason that is because I don't have to remember what I say. I just have to remember what happened. So,
this is my podcast, but I got to thank Kevin for bringing the story, because, you know, if so many things had to happen, it's like I had an interview lined up for, not this past Sunday, not yesterday, but the previous Sunday. That fell through at the last minute. So I call up Kevin. I'm like, hey, can you come on and tell me a story? Because I don't have anything else ready. And he says, sure. So he gives me a couple, you know, he says, Maksim Gelman. I'm like, is he German? But
and I think my response to that was, no, he's an asshole.
Yeah.
That's the right answer.
Yeah. So he tells me a little bit about it, and he starts talking about another case. I'm like, no, let's do Gelman. That one. So basically, if this stuff hadn't happened with my other, you know, scheduled interview, you know, falling through, we're not talking right now.
Well, which one of you guys, when I tweeted, because I get notifications, like I Google search, I'll get emails, like if I have his name in there, because if something happens with Gelman, I want to know, like if it's like a hearing or whatever. So I got an email that morning, and it was about your podcast. So then I went and I listened to it, and then that's when I tweeted, you know, thanking you guys. So which one of you guys was I tweeting at when I did that?
That's me.
Okay.
I very, very rarely am on Twitter, and when I am, it's under my show thing.
Yeah. I just had to thank you for that, because, like I said, aside from it being entertaining, it's always good to get the story out there, because every time someone tells the story, it's new ears that are listening. And, you know, the one thing I always say is about, you know, like joke around about it, like police don't owe a duty to protect. And like, it sounds so fucking crazy to say it, but it is actually legitimate. And I tell people this all the time, like, it sounds so ludicrous that your brain can't digest it. But the way it was explained to me was, a woman can be getting raped down an alley, and a cop can basically stand there and wait for the guy to finish and then arrest him and not intervene. And he wouldn't owe that person a duty to protect. And that, I think that for me anyway, that was probably the best way to let it hit home, because obviously I'm married. I have a mom, I have a sister. So if you use a rape analogy,
that's horrible.
That's going to hit home, because it's awful. But that's how it was explained to me, that, you know, you need a special relationship. And I said, well, what would constitute?
Well, I guess if he's going away, you got to let him get his rocks off one last time.
Well, you know,
God damn, that pisses me off.
Fucked up to think that, like,
well, here's what's
they don't have to do anything.
Well, let me explain to you here, because you may not know what constitutes a special relationship. So, my case does not get thrown out if, let's say, I knew who Maksim Gelman was and I saw the police and I go up to the police and say to them, hey, if you're here for Maksim Gelman, he's right here. And they acknowledge what I said to them. Well, now we have a special relationship.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, no, it's all loopholes.
How's that even going to happen? You didn't even know that this was going on.
Exactly.
So you could have walked up, tapped on the window, and held up the newspaper and been like,
yeah,
and they wouldn't have done shit.
Well, then let me just say this: the judge, who wasn't the first judge designated to this case, she was put in at a certain point. She has helped the city before with some cases. There was a case where a woman sued the city because I think she was having a cardiac situation, and it took forever for the ambulances to get there. And the mother sued the police, and the case was thrown out because the person who called was a friend of the woman and not a relative. If she was family, that's different. I swear. And this you can Google too. If you Google Margaret Chan, that case comes up. And actually, for people that are on Twitter, if you want to, I do like a 50 thread tweet every year on the anniversary, and it's my pinned tweet. And there's links in there to different things that happen. And there's a link to that story where the mother of the woman sued the city, and the case was dismissed by the same judge, Margaret Chan, because of a technicality. So, I call me a conspiracy theorist, if you will, but I'm pretty sure that Judge Chan was there for a reason. So,
yep,
yeah,
she's in somebody's pocket, and they needed it. They needed it handled a certain way, and they knew exactly who to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. We've actually had a couple up here in Vermont. We've had a couple of weird police situations in the last couple of years. We had I want to say it was last year. State trooper pulled a guy over because the guy gave him the finger. Arrested him for assault. And the guy was just like, okay, and just went along with it because he knew, like, he saw, like, the money signs were going off.
Yeah.
He sued the Vermont State Police for like $350,000 and won.
Is that right?
Yep. And then here last week, maybe it might have been tail end of last week, we had a cop hit a guy on a bike. And like the guy was out on a bicycle, and the cop hit him at like 60 miles an hour and launched him through a bus stop and killed him.
No.
Come to find out, the cop is watching YouTube on his computer while he's driving. So he didn't admit to it, but they obviously check everything with the vehicle, and they're going through his computer, and they're like, why the fuck is why was YouTube pulled up in your search history on here? And then he was like, oh, I was watching a YouTube video and maybe accidentally hit and killed a guy. It's like,
well, I mean,
you know what, and the thing with my case, and I say this, I always want to say this to people. We never discussed money because it never got to that point. And I listen, I'm not going to lie. At the time my kids were 10 and 7, they were both destined to go to college. My first son, he graduated already. My second son, he's going for his master's starting in September. Yeah, if they offered me money, I would have taken it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not going to say no, it was never about the money. It wasn't about the money, but if they offered me something, I would have to consider it. If it was money that was going to help me with my kids' college or whatever, of course, I'm not going to lie and say that. But the fact is, had we gone to court, and had I won the case and got the truth out there for the record in a court of law, and they awarded me a penny, I would have been okay with that too. Because I just want the truth out there so people know, and maybe it sets a precedent going forward for other people.
Yep. Right. And that's not you like ambulance chasing for money. That would have been, you deserve this because you were injured because someone else refused to do their job.
I always say, at the very least, I deserve Terrence Howell's day's pay and the pension for that. At the very least, I should get his day's pay.
Pay my hospital bills.
Yeah, I mean, well, fortunately, I guess the city must have taken care of the hospital bills. I never
that's
got a
nice.
bill or
Yeah.
anything. Yeah,
That's
it's the
cool.
least they could do. But yeah, so I should at least get Terrence Howell's day's pay.
Yeah.
So, and at that point, he was on quite a bit. He had been on for probably almost 15, 20 years maybe. So he probably made a
Damn.
decent living that day. So,
And now he's retired with a pension. I'd put money on it.
he's retired with a pension. So I always say, this incident is the gift that keeps on giving to me. I pay into Terrence Howell's pension. I pay into Tamara Taylor's salary and her pension.
She's
and I
still
pay.
on?
She's still on. She was
Oh
a
my
lot younger.
God.
And I pay into keeping Gelman fed. So yeah, it's the triple threat of working in New York City. I get to support these people.
I have another question about the subway. Because in the courtroom, he was making a big grandiose show and all that stuff. I'm wondering, it's like as once he's cuffed and being led out of there, is he like screaming at people, like putting on a show and everything?
So he actually had two court appearances. The one that made the papers where he was acting like a fucking loser and taunting the families and stuff like that. That was actually the Brooklyn sentencing for everything other than me, because you had a lot of the families there, and he was basically acting like a fucking idiot, trying to put on a show for everybody, and that happened before mine. So, for myself, I read that and I said, okay. I said, so I have some preparation here. I don't know what he's going to try to pull.
I meant once he was arrested and taken away from the subway, was he grandstanding? Was he trying making an ass out of himself?
You know what? At that point, I was
You were
almost out of it. So
Yeah,
I don't think so. I think I'm sure he was whining like a bitch, saying "let me go" or something. But I cannot confirm, because at that point, that was a few moments before they picked me up and put me on the stretcher, and I passed out. So
I was just curious.
I can't confirm it, but probably.
Yeah. So you're when he attacked you, that was in Manhattan, right?
Yeah, that was in
Okay.
Manhattan. So
that would make sense.
Yeah, so everything he did was in Brooklyn except
Yep.
for me. So everything as far as court stuff, it was always two things. It was everything but me happened in Brooklyn, and then my incident happened in Manhattan. So it was two different courts. So.
And man, that poor girl that he killed her mother, and they went back and just happened upon her. That was
that was
brutal.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I always try to make a point of saying this not about me.
Right. It's about the 4 victims and the 5 people that got hurt.
Hey, think about the father. The father lost a wife and a daughter. Like,
his whole family is gone.
Yeah, because there's a man out there that in one day lost his wife and his daughter, and I have a wife and I have 2 sons. I can't imagine what that's like. I don't want to imagine what that's like. I couldn't. But he affected so many people in 28 hours, and I'm a big death penalty guy, so I obviously think he should have been taken care of that way.
Save the taxpayers some money.
Yeah. You know what? People have asked me if I would, flip the switch or whatever, and I always say everybody that he affected before me should deserve to do it before me. But if everyone declined, I'd be chomping at the bit to flip the switch and see him head off to hell.
Yeah, the other one that a lot of people probably don't think about is his mom too. It's like she lost her husband and her son. But
yeah, and
her son was an asshole, and by all accounts, her husband wasn't much better. But still,
what I will say is, I knew someone who knew the mother. Actually, didn't know him, but knew the family. And from everything that I've heard, the woman's an absolute sweetheart, an absolute gem. And doesn't deserve him for a son or to what have happened. What happened basically. Happened to her. I've heard nothing but nice things about the woman. So it's unfortunate that this one piece of shit could impact so many people in such a negative way.
And that's why you don't do hard drugs, kids.
I tell you,
fuck,
ain't that the truth?
Okay, if there's a if there's a movie made about this, it needs to be called 28 Hours, obviously. But who plays you?
Well, based on looks, it would have to be Brad Pitt, right? I mean, yeah. If we're gonna stay true to the story, no. And actually, if you don't mind me getting a little controversial here, the way Hollywood is nowadays, I guess Leslie Jones would probably play me, right? I mean, the way things go now, it would probably be Leslie Jones.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. So
Yeah, right.
If Disney made it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I would say Brad Pitt or Leslie Jones, depending on who's the production company.
Oh shit,
So,
that's funny.
Oh God.
That's great.
Or Sylvia Sweeney.
yeah, somewhat. I mean, like I said, you're right. If Disney has control of it, all bets are off. So, I could go on about Disney, but I won't. But let's just say, yeah.
I bet all three of us could.
Yeah.
I haven't watched Daredevil yet, but I hope they didn't screw that up.
I'm hopeful. I'm not a big comic book guy, but I hope they didn't screw it up.
I did like Daredevil. Daredevil was very good. The first 2 seasons or 3 seasons or whatever it was were very good.
I will never, on the other hand, forgive them for what they did to Star Wars, other than the Mandalorian, because Mandalorian was good.
If you want to talk what they did to Star Wars, I'll go get my oldest son down here, and you could be on here for 20 hours. So, he's as far as a movie goes, I don't know. I'll stick with Leslie Jones. I can't think of anybody. It would be a nice problem to have. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, it'd be a nice problem to have. But
except if they did the movie, they'd change your name so they didn't have to pay you fucking royalties because they'd contact the police first.
Exactly. I'll be bystander number 3, like henchman number 2. I'll be that guy. So yeah.
That would.
And like for my part of this, like I've got to be fully honest with you. All of this happened by chance. Like the researching into this, everything, then bringing it to Bill, all of it happened by chance. Because when I first got all the information, it was my week to do an episode. So I was like, I'm going to find something. So I was like, we've got a maximum security prison less than an hour from my house. I'm just going to flip through the online directory and just see who's in there and who has an interesting story. And I saw his mugshot and went, ugh, this ugly fuck, what'd he do? And I started looking into it. Holy shit. And I was like, yeah, we're going to cover that. And then when Bill contacted me and he's like, I need to do something, I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I was sitting on the couch with my son and I'm like flipping through old episodes and I'm like, man, like I've done a lot of crime, but nothing that we could knock out in like an hour and a half. Like we'd be here all fucking day with some of these. Yeah. And I was like, let's go back. Let's go way back. And I found that and I went, that could be good. Because when the Miami episode I brought on, that was 3 hours that we recorded at least.
Yeah, I think the episode itself is like right around 2 hours after all the edits and everything.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to stick to the just by chance thing, 2 things I didn't tell you, not for any other reason other than I try to condense the story sometimes, but the 3 train that I got on that morning is a train I don't normally take. I usually take the 1 train. So here in New York, we have express trains and we have local trains. The 2 and the 3 are expresses. The 1 is a local. That day, they were doing construction on the 1 track. So on parts of the track. So the 1 was running express as well. So that day, everything was express. The only difference between the tracks, the 1 track only has 1 train that goes on it. The 3 track has the 2 and the 3. So I never did it before, and I haven't done it since. That day was the first and only day that I actually went to the other track thinking that I'll get to work quicker because 2 trains go on that track and only 1 train goes here. So I've never, ever done that before that. I haven't done it since. And the second thing, by chance, Alfred Douglas, he's a construction worker. He was a foreman, I believe, on a job. Alfred Douglas was off from work that day. He just happened to be going in to check on the job. Wow. And we ended up in the same car. So, again, you want to talk about things that happen by chance.
Yep.
Those are 2 things that happen by chance.
Well, Going back to what we were talking about Twitter, I think Twitter and YouTube. I think Twit. I don't know. think it's a pretty close tie between Twitter and YouTube about how people involved with cases reach out to me and everything. Because like you're the second prominent one that I've had off of Twitter. The other one was Jody Plauché, the son of Gary Plauché. Are you familiar with that story?
Not by name.
Louisiana. Gary Plauché's son Jody gets like kidnapped by his abuser that he had been abusing him for like an entire year.
He's a
Takes him
karate
to
instructor,
California.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff Doucette. He's arrested. The Jody's brought back on a separate plane as they extradite Doucette back. Gary Plauché is in the airport at a payphone waiting.
Oh yeah, I know this. Yeah,
Fucking
absolutely.
Smoke him. Oh
Yes.
my God.
Yeah.
That guy's my hero. The dad is my hero. Yes.
Mhm.
I said not by name, but as you were telling the story, I'm like, this kind of sounds familiar. And I didn't mean to step on the ending there, but yes, I absolutely
everybody,
know who you're talking
everybody, it's like everybody that I tell about that, they're like, what? Once I get into it, it's just like, oh, that story.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
We've all seen that video. That
Yeah.
guy's my hero.
Standing
Yes.
there
Yeah.
half drunk, looking like fucking Arn Anderson.
Oh, great Arn Anderson reference.
Goddamn.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
To go one-handed under the arm without really even looking and not hit anybody else. That was just
Yeah.
Yep.
Father of the year, man. Father of the year.
But Jody has become a really good friend. He's been on several episodes where we were covering like Louisiana serial killers, and those episodes went off the chain.
Yeah.
I mean, Jody's a trip.
there's another podcast. I can't listen to it. I have to watch it on YouTube. It's called Unsubscribe. It's a bunch of like military veterans and stuff like that, just kind of fucking around, being goofballs. And they had Jody on an episode of that, and like all the shit that guy went through, he has every right in the world to be bitter and never want to talk about it.
But he's
on
not.
there cracking jokes about it.
Yeah.
He's like within a couple of weeks of everything happening, we had a barbecue at the house or whatever, and my dad's like, "Hey, I was just thinking about Jeff," and he goes, "What do you mean?" He just very slowly looked down at the fucking charcoal briquettes in the grill that are on fire.
That's great.
Like, God damn! Like, I want to be Gary when I grow up.
You know, if I could, now I'm not comparing my situation to his, because I would take what happened to me over him 7 days a week and twice on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
But just from, if you want to talk about the mentality, like people have said that to me, like I think I've been pretty open with you guys tonight, try to inject some humor and everything. I think it's.
I mean, I could tell from our conversations on Twitter that you were really cool.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, but I think it's part of the process, and I think at a certain point, and again, I don't know, as far as Jody goes, you'd have to ask him. But speaking for myself, there's a time where you either control the story or the story controls you. Yep. And I've always felt, for me anyway, and maybe having my case thrown out was the best thing for me, because I kind of made it a mission to get the word out there and to get the story out there to as many people. And, it's always been a mission of mine to get it out there, because, it was always, it's always something. Like you mentioned the guy down in Florida, the school security guard. Well, when that story broke, a lot of news outlets used my story. They used the story of what happened to me, because again, that guy didn't take any action. And
wow, I didn't know that. Holy crap.
Geez.
So they went back and they used my story. So not that I ever want any incident like that to happen, but if people are curious,
it's precedent setting.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So people are able to do this. So even though Margaret Chan had the opportunity to set a precedent and she chose not to protect the police in New York City, it's out there enough where now when stuff happens, news outlets will actually use it. And again, I hope it never has to get used again.
Well,
but
definitely.
If it does and people research it, it educates more people. And that's the thing. That's really what I just want people to know. You really are. You're on your own out there. No matter who you see, you can't just take anything for granted. Now, I didn't have the opportunity to even take anything for granted. Everything happened so quickly.
No,
But I don't.
he came at you. You were in fight or flight, and you
Right,
fought.
right. But I don't want people to get complacent just because you see someone there that's paid to protect, or whatever, because you don't know what's inside that uniform. And I would, again, like I said in the beginning,
That's
I
a
think,
really good way to put it, actually.
yeah,
Mhm.
because
I never,
you
I
don't
never
know
thought
who's
of it like
inside
that.
that uniform, and you just have to know that you're there for yourself. And I don't, if hearing about my story and educating people about taking care of your own business, taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, and all these incidents helps one person. I know it sounds cliche as I'm saying it. I'm rolling my own eyes like it does. It sounds cliche, but it's true, because it really, at this point, once my case got thrown out, I said I can either just let this go and move on, or I can try to make it a mission and try to educate as many people as possible. Which is why I try to, every day on my Twitter, I'm always retweeting the same few things that are, like I said, the documentary. There's a couple of videos on YouTube I retweeted every day. So if people were interested, they can go and look at that stuff. But I've done a few public speaking things. I'd really like to get involved in that more, just to get it out there, because people need to know.
Well, I mean, if anything, I mean, yeah, your story is important because of the legal aspect of it, and the basically how the police are able to just basically pass the buck, but it's also important because nobody knows what they're going to do in that situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
So hearing that situation from you and what you did shed some light on it, especially what you went through. That's why I was asking you about what's going through your mind at this point. Because it's really that's important too. Because everybody wonders. And it's just like me, for example. Okay, I know how I would like to handle a situation, like if I was in a situation like that, but you don't gotta know how you're gonna react until you're there.
Yep.
I
So you know.
Well, and it's funny. It's funny you say that, because I've had so many people tell me, if I was in your position, I would have done the same thing. And I say, well,
You don't know that.
well,
You know?
I say you're better than I am, because if you had asked me the day before what I would do, all I could have said to you is, I hope I would do that. But you don't know. Like, I couldn't be sure.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I would just,
I hope I would do that. I hope
yeah,
I would.
Yeah.
I would
And
hope
it's
I would do that, but you don't know. Like, you never
yeah.
know until you're in that situation. And I'm fortunate that I'm, the way it went down. I'm fortunate that I'm able to talk to you guys today.
And unfortunately, because of like how the world is now, and how like you have cops like that out there, there is an adage that you are your own first responder.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I'm a big advocate of, if you can legally, where you are, carry a firearm,
Do it.
absolutely do it.
I'm
Get
in Florida,
training with
so.
it. Don't just go buy a pistol and think you're fucking John Wick. Go get some training with it. And medical training is another big thing. Like, I've been trying to work some of that into my my regiment lately. I've got to the point where I went out and I bought a couple of tourniquets that I keep in my truck just in case. I've got a medical box in my truck just in case. I've got medical shit at home just in case. Because there's not always going to be somebody to pull your ass out if you're in trouble. Sometimes you have to do it yourself, and
One thing about
fucking hairy.
One thing about trucking, like, there is a law that says that if a truck driver, witnesses another truck accident, they have to stop.
Mm-hmm.
They are the first responder. And
I'm supposed to stop if I ever see a vehicle accident, because I'm CPR certified.
I mean,
so usually it's like, you roll down the window. You good? Okay, cool.
No, but when I was in a trucking accident in Arizona back in 2018, sure enough, the next truck that came by stopped, and and it's just like, well, holy crap! I wasn't sure if people would actually do that. Well, it happened with us and everything. I was team driving. I was asleep, but a drunk driver came across into our lane and hit us head on. Wow. And another truck driver stopped, and I was just like, okay, so people actually do that.
That's a brotherhood. That's good. That's good.
Yep. And we've brought up the the school shooting in Florida, with the Marjorie Stoneman.
Marjorie
Yeah.
Stoneman High School.
Bill, I'm not sure if you're familiar with. It was a case that I've heard other people cover. I've covered it before, and I fucking cried while I was researching it and then recording it. Howard Unruh. He was a spree. He was basically the first mass murderer in American history.
I know who he is.
Yeah,
I
went
haven't
through New
covered him.
Jersey, killed. He killed a bunch of people, including a couple of.
He went on the murder walk, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a couple of very, very young boys that were just. I had a hard time with that because my son had just been born at the time, so I've gotten soft. That's why I had to I can't do crime anymore. But one of the people that he was trying to kill, who was his neighbor, he killed the entire family except for one little boy that hid in the closet. His granddaughter survived that school shooting by hiding in a fucking closet.
You know what? I have heard that. I have heard that. I have heard that as an aside.
Yep.
It may have been on True Crime Kent when they covered it.
Yeah. The one that really got me was the little boy in the barber shop.
Yeah.
After that, I was just like, I'm done doing true crime shit. I can't do it anymore. Like before my son was born, I was like, oh yeah, no, I want all the gruesome details. I'm looking at fucking crime scene photos and shit. And then I'm like, there's a miniature version of me. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore because now I don't see, oh, it's just a dead body. I'm like, that was somebody's kid. And that was the turning point where I'm like, I'm just going to go talk about guys that have been dead for fucking 50, 60 years that did some crazy shit during World War II. It's way more fun. Yeah.
Hey, man, it just means you're a good dad,
Man.
Everything, once you have kids, like I said, I got 2 boys, and everything changes. Once you're in charge of someone, whether they live or die, and they rely on you to live, all the priorities change. So if you're doing it right, all the priorities change.
I'm a girl dad.
Oh, you got a whole different set of problems.
I have 2 daughters, 28 and 15.
Okay.
And
I only have a niece, so I don't have any daughters. I just got 2 boys.
I find myself being very much more attentive to other people and in stores and stuff. Like we were in Walmart the other day, and he's he's wandering down he's 2, so he's getting a little independent. So he's wandering down one of the toy aisles, and I'm right there with him. And this dude steps into the end of the aisle, and I just looked at him. I just kind of and then I made sure I got up there with him, and I'm like, I don't want you anywhere near my kid. I don't, you could be the nicest person in the world, but you're not coming between me and my kid because I will leave holes in you and then get arrested in Walmart.
Listen, there's no reason to chance it.
Nope.
So.
Nope.
No.
Not even a little bit.
So is there anything else that you want to add to the episode?
Well, I would say that
because we want it all.
No, I think you guys did a great job, and again, I want to thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I really do. I'm not just saying that because, like I said, it's another opportunity for me to speak and get the story out there. And if any of your listeners haven't ever heard the story, now they're hearing the first person narrative. And
right,
if anyone is interested, and I'll say this just because I wrote a book years ago. It's on Amazon. It's self-published. Just search my name, Joseph Lozito, and it's a nice picture of myself bleeding on the cover, and you'll see it. And that has every detail in there, basically from start to finish. And I put in all the cases that the city tried to use to get my case thrown out, none of which have any similarity to my case at all. It's people that have read it have enjoyed it.
I'm going to link it. I'm going to link it in your
picture.
You saw it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up right now. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, there you go. So
I'm going to link it in the show notes, and I'm also going to link your Twitter page.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. Like I said, I wrote the book. Honestly, it took me a year. It took me 9 months out of a year. I took a break for 3 months because it just started to get a little overwhelming. But it was really just probably the biggest thing that helped me, move on. As much as people say I haven't moved on, I have. But putting it down and every chapter I wrote was like another load of bricks off my back.
Yep.
So it wasn't
Well,
anything.
I'm writing a book about my childhood,
Yeah.
and I've kind of found that too. But I mean,
Yeah.
I've told the story on the podcast before, but with the book, I'm telling everything, you know.
Yeah. And
So
and I think for me, I didn't. I always laugh because I say I didn't really write it to make money. Not that I would have uh, put not taken it if it did make money. I always laugh saying a Kardashian can write a book they can't even read, but it'll sell millions of copies.
Yeah.
yeah,
But
Taylor
really,
Swift is a billionaire. I mean,
yeah, I mean, but if people buy it, if they really want to know every single detail, I put every single detail in there. If you're curious, I'd appreciate if you buy it. If you don't buy it, or if someone has it, borrow it. Yeah, I've been fortunate. I was able to when both my kids were in the same school in high school, I was able to go there and talk to some of the kids about it, and kind of they were my kids were both in it's called the leadership program, so I was able to talk to some of the kids. I was able to do a book reading there, and like I said, I've done some public speaking. It's something I really would like to get into more. But yeah, it's just like you never know who you're going to touch. Like I could tell just from your reaction talking about that guy, like his whole story and the fact that you know him as an individual, it touches you. And
Yep.
like for me, if people buy the book or watch any of the documentaries on my Twitter, like it's cool. Reach out to me. I'm an open book, and people can just ask me any questions they want. I'm cool with that. And yeah, I mean, other than that, as far as if we were talking about it before we started recording, I do have my own podcast. It's about hockey fighting. It's called Coliseum Chronicles: The Penalty Box. I just released episode 180 today. So
fuck yeah, nice.
if you like hockey fights, most of the better episodes are the ones where I actually interview the guys who do the job. I would recommend not listening to my solo episodes because it's just me. But yeah, if you like hockey fights, I might have interviewed someone that you're a fan of. So feel free to check out Coliseum Chronicles: The Penalty Box.
I went over like the Facebook page already. I'm gonna hop on Spotify when I get done and subscribe to it because like that's.
I'm
a big sports guy, and that's right up my alleys. Sports.
I'm not really a hockey fan. It's kind of like a if a Florida team is in the postseason, I'll watch.
Yeah.
You guys shouldn't have hockey. It shouldn't be allowed.
Hey, we're the Stanley Cup champs.
Well, yeah, but like Arizona shouldn't have one either, and thankfully they don't anymore. Like if ice doesn't occur naturally, you guys shouldn't be playing hockey.
Hey, speaking of Florida, you got the Orlando Solar Bears down there. My buddy is the coach. He's a bad dude named Matt Kartner.
Oh,
he
wow.
played up here on Long Island. He's a fucking monster. And he runs that team down there. So
I didn't even know that they were still in existence.
They're still there, baby.
Because there's this talk radio station in Orlando, Real Radio 104.1. It's like literally the only successful FM talk station in the country. It's the only one that like generates like significant money and whatnot. And but back in the 90s, one of the shows that they have on there did a partnership with the Solar Bears, so that's how I'm aware of them.
Yep.
But I didn't know that league was still in existence.
Well, that league is not in existence. They used to be in the IHL. Now they're in the East Coast Hockey League. So, but yeah. So if you want to talk about bad dudes, that's Matt Kartner. He's coach and GM there. So yeah. So we root for Orlando in this house.
I think the coolest hockey story that I have is the best man at my wedding. His sister graduated from UVM with Tim Thomas.
Oh, that's a character right there,
like,
Tim Thomas.
She's like, oh yeah, he used to get really fucking drunk and just fight everybody. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. Because like for a goalie, he'd be like, no, fuck you, and he'd fight anybody.
Goalies are fucking weird to begin with, and that guy is a different breed. Even for a goalie, he's a different breed.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much just a football guy.
Oh, I love football too. Football's my favorite right now. So
I'm a Dolphins fan.
Yeah, I hate the Dolphins more than any team in sports.
Who's your team?
Buffalo Bills.
Ah, okay. I'm starting to.
He's a Patriots fan. Kevin's a Patriots fan. I'm a Dolphins fan, and we both had y'all's back when y'all got screwed in the AFC Championship.
I appreciate that.
We did.
Thank you.
We had
but I
that
still hate
conversation.
Miami.
I was so fucking mad
Yeah.
watching that game. I was like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the bad guys come in and win. I was like,
know.
all right.
I mean, you have Jets, Dolphins, and Patriots fans all with
Yeah.
Buffalo's back on that issue. That tells you something.
And
No,
here's the thing.
I
is, like,
know exactly, but you know what? You're 100% right, because like I'm 54. I've hated Miami for probably 45 years, and and if it was the same way, as much as I hate them, I would have to be honest about it and have Miami's back. So it's good.
I mean, I grew up a Patriots fan. I remember the bad days with fucking Scott Zolak and Drew Bledsoe, and I hated Tom Brady. But the only thing I would give him credit for is like he would get blasted, get back up, put his helmet on, and go back and play. Other than that, take him or leave him. But Josh Allen is a freak. I've started to turn more towards a Buffalo fan, and
there's
you're jumping ship to a division rival.
I mean, I did it with
God.
baseball too, because I have MLB Network, but because we have NESN, I can't watch the fucking Red Sox. So I've been a Toronto Blue Jays fan for the last 5 years, and they're bad.
I will say this: not a week goes by when we watch the games here, and like we watch Josh Allen, and my wife and I will look at each other and we just be like, "Oh, I love this kid." Like he's just like actually had this conversation.
You know what he looks like? He looks like the high school, like a Southern jock in a high school movie. The quarterback. Yeah. That's what he looks like. He's got that look on his face. It's just like,
you know what? he just like, it almost seems like he's too good to be true. Like as a human being, like the stuff that he does, it's really incredible, because he is the Buffalo Bills right now. And I've been a fan forever, and like to me, Jim Kelly's the gold standard. Four AFC championships in a row, and I always say, like, until Josh does this, but watching this kid every year, I don't know, he might be the best quarterback they've ever had. I mean, aside, those 4 championship games aside, like he's just doing things that a normal human being shouldn't be able to do.
Oh, yeah. You'll get no argument from me.
And,
I mean,
then his MVP speech that he gave when he won that year is like, he's not a good football player. He's a good person.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what I love about him is
made the fucking janitor cry.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because one of his big things is like, he doesn't, as far as autographs go, he's not big, from what I hear, on signing for adults, but he'll sign for kids all day long. All day long. It doesn't matter. He'll stay there for hours to be with kids. So
this is going to make you mad. Back in I don't know, was it 2006, 2007, something like that. It was this Dolphins Bills game in Miami. It was when Gus Frerotte was the Dolphins quarterback. He got knocked out. He got knocked out in the first half. And the Dolphins at halftime were down like 23 to 3 or something like that. And then freaking Sage motherfucking Rosenfels comes in and leads them back to to win the game in overtime.
They couldn't prepare for Sage. There was no tape.
Yeah.
They didn't know what he could do.
What did this guy do in high school? That was the last time he actually started a game.
Yeah, exactly. Everything was black and white.
Speaking of Miami quarterbacks, like, I think we could probably all agree Tua needs to retire, because if not, he's going to die on the field, and I would feel so bad because he seems like a good dude.
Either that or he's going to kill his family like Chris Benoit did.
God.
Tua, I really, you know what? He's a hard guy to not like.
Yeah,
I know. He's a great guy. I just don't want. I don't want him to get killed.
I agree 100%. Like, I say this. I'll give you the flip side of that. I agree he should retire, but I also respect the fact that these professional athletes have a mindset that the average person doesn't have, and I think that's part of what gets them to that level. is that they think differently. And I know, there's a certain thing where you feel like you're immortal or whatever, but
But the thing about it is, if something happens to him, like if he starts having CTE issues, or heaven forbid something like Chris Benoit
yeah,
happens and everything, and it comes out that, I mean, basically the doctors are clearing him, and if it
yeah.
comes out there was payola involved,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
NFL's done.
that's gonna be ugly.
Yeah. No, I listen, I agree. I used to make fun of Tua all the time, like his lack of arm strength and stuff like that, like everyone else did. But I think he's a decent quarterback, and like I said, from everything you see, he seems like a really good guy, and he seems like a good family man. And it's like I say, it's easy for us to say he should retire. Like I would retire and spend time with my family, but again,
100%.
maybe that's the mindset that propels these guys to be professionals.
I mean,
We don't have that.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're not doctors. I mean, we
No.
don't know.
No.
I mean, if the doctors legitimately say he's okay, who are we to say anything
Yeah.
otherwise?
It's just hard to believe that it would be legitimate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, watching
Exactly.
him lock up on the field is like that.
Yeah,
that
just-
was fucking
throwing
heartbreaking.
throwing
It's like,
fucking gang
Jesus,
signs
just
and shit.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
horrible.
stop.
Yeah.
Just stop.
Yeah.
But you have the same shit with UFC. Like these guys are willing to go in there and die in the cage, and like I have a hard time watching that too because I'm like I don't necessarily like I'll watch boxing all day long. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to watch somebody get kneed in the fucking face and smash their nose flat, and be like,
Yeah.
I can go fight more. No, just stop, just stay there. 'Cause
Yeah.
Well, I like the UFC not as much as I like mixed martial arts not as much as I used to, but I do like it. But yeah, and the difference is Tua could retire tomorrow and he has enough money for 2 lifetimes.
Oh
These
yeah,
fighters
exactly.
is like there's only like 1% that could retire and live off that. So the unfortunate part with most of these fighters is they're not making the money, life-changing money that they could retire. A lot of these guys are fighting because they have to.
yeah, I mean, what's the biggest payout they're getting? Like John Jones is getting like 50 grand a fight or something like that.
No, John Jones makes significant money.
Okay,
He's one of those guys he'll make at least 6 figures.
and he's again, that's another guy that is not necessarily a good person. Like
No,
he's
no.
done a lot of really nasty
Yeah.
shit outside of the,
Yeah.
No,
it's I've met my share of fighters. They're all, everyone I've met was really good to me and everything. The unfortunate part for some of them is their backstory. Their
Yeah,
childhood
holy
sometimes weren't the easiest, and I think you probably see that in boxing and a lot of the other combat sports too.
Yep.
A lot of people get into that after they have like a rough childhood or something, but that's just one of the unfortunate patterns it seems like happens. It's not all of them, but it does happen to quite a bit of them. And but
boxing, they used to refer to boxing as a sport of poverty because you didn't need anything for it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and I trained in a kickboxing gym here on Long Island. I trained. There were UFC fighters and professional boxers there, and those guys are on a different level. I always tell people this story. There was a summer day where the door was open, and I was walking to the gym, and it literally sounded like someone was shooting a machine gun, and it was just this fighter whose base was boxing, and he was just hitting pads, and I literally just stopped at the door, and I was just in awe that a human being could do that, and I was like, wow, that was just like eye-opening. Just talk about like what makes people a professional. Like Tua is a professional, he has that mindset, and here I am watching this guy, and he's just, you can't even see his hands, they're so fast. Like it's like, wow. Like,
And there's still some moron that will walk up to him at a bar and start a fight because he thinks he can beat him up because he's fucking. He's got whiskey muscle.
You're talking
the
about
funny part is I'm talking about a guy who he's a sweetheart. He's a bit out there, but he's a sweetheart of a guy, and he looks the part too. So it's not like some of these guys, like a Frankie Edgar, is a smaller guy. I don't know if he wears glasses, but if he wears glasses, he could look like a banker or something like that. So you think you're going to bully him, and he's going to go outside and twist you into a pretzel.
Yeah.
The guy I'm talking about actually looks the part. Like,
well, you're talking about him with his hands like moving so fast you can't even see him.
Yeah.
Let's switch to music. What about James Hetfield from Metallica's Down Pick?
I don't know. I enjoy the music, but I don't know technical stuff. So
Okay, I'll explain it to you very quickly. His, normally you're going up, down, up, down, up, down,
Yeah.
up, down, up, down, and that's where your speed comes from. James Hetfield has that speed. He just goes down, 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 down.
Okay. Yeah. See, I didn't know if you were making fun of him or not. So.
No, fuck no.
Okay. I was gonna say I like their music. I just don't know anything technical. I know people usually make fun of Lars, but
Lars gets
I
a
like
bad
them,
rap.
so.
Lars gets a bad rap.
Yeah, I've got no musical ability whatsoever, so I'm in the dark on that one.
Well, I'm a musician, but
Yeah.
No,
I love him.
The guy that does his own intro and outro music's a musician? No way.
Well, on my podcast, the outro music is the if you're old enough to remember the Incredible Hulk, the Lou Ferrigno show, the end,
walking away.
Yeah, that's the music I use as my outro.
That's perfect.
I paid $25 for my music for my new show because I'm like I'm not gonna ask somebody to do it again because the last guy I asked to do it was like, yeah, sure, and then it was like 4 months, and I'm like, dude, I want to get this shit done.
Yeah,
I forgot to. Fuck it, I'll pay somebody that actually knows what they're doing.
You know how much I paid for my intro and outro?
Oh god, how between the guitar and the amps and all that shit, probably a couple grand, I would say.
Plus about 40 years of my life.
Yeah, this is the only thing I'm good at is talking. So
yeah, I think that's the same.
Talking and fucking hanging drywall, I can do that pretty well.
Oh, see, I can't even hang drywall.
Oh man, that's
pretty
much.
That's
pretty much all I do at work. Is I patch holes in walls, I tear bathrooms apart and put them back together. But
yeah,
other than that, I have no skills.
It's more skills than I have. So.
Well,
this has been really fun. Thanks, Joe, for coming on.
No, absolutely, I appreciate it. Like when Bill told me that you got a hold of him, I'm like, bullshit. He's like, no, seriously. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, this is gonna be crazy.
Yeah, no, I said,
it happens with this podcast. I don't know why. Like you, Dark, your old podcast and everything. Did people ever reach out to you?
Not that we're involved with anything that we talked about.
Yeah, that's what that's what I mean. It's just like, this happens to me, not frequently, but not rarely either.
And like the first 10 episodes of History Goon that I've recorded, the most recent person that I've talked about on there died in 2001.
Oh. So he's not contacting you.
No.
If he does, you might want to call a priest.
I don't know. He was a Muslim, so I'm not sure what we'd have to call there. But he was the guy that that sent a bunch of information to the U.S. about 9/11, and they completely fucking ignored it. And then he got blown up September 9th.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You need to release that fucking podcast because I want to hear.
I have 2 more episodes to record, and I'm going to do those this week, and then I'm at the mercy of someone else to see when it comes out. So,
yeah.
But
well, it was my pleasure, guys. Like I said, I found out about it because of my notifications from Google, and I'm glad that that's part of the reason why. So I just wanted to compliment you guys. So
one other thing I wanted to ask you, about that is it. I would think, I thought that you had the notifications set because it was obviously I released the episode the night before, so I mean it was obvious that you had some sort of notification set up to find it that quickly, but I was thinking it was just for like you want to know everything that happens associated with his name, like maybe is it maybe because like, okay, if he might get somehow paroled or something like that, you want to know about it?
Well, I don't think there's any chance of that.
I don't either, but I'm just saying in general, you just want to know everything that goes on with that fucker.
If it had happened in Vermont, there would have been there would have been parole hearings, and there would have been a bunch of bleeding hearts. Like, well, maybe he's reformed.
Don't even get me started. We have those people here in New York, so don't even get me started on those people.
At least once a month, I'll get a notification through like the local news thing here of a high risk sex offender that's been released that refused rehabilitation in prison, but he won't do it again.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
you
I
take
always
that guy
laugh.
out back and you shoot him in the fucking head and leave him behind a dumpster.
Yeah, I laugh when these prisoners go on hunger strikes. I'm like,
Yeah.
let them go. Let them go on hunger strike till they're dead. Like, who gives a shit?
Fuck you, eat your own shoes.
Yeah, like I
Oh
don't
my
care.
God.
No, you know what? I think it's probably just I don't want to miss anything if it happens. I don't think he's getting out of jail.
No, he's not going to
Um,
get out of jail.
Yeah,
I mean,
like 200
just
years, I think. So yeah,
I mean,
he's
listen,
going to be a ghost by the time he's allowed out.
yeah, like let's say an unfortunate accident happens in prison and he finds himself on the other side of the dirt. Maybe I'd like to know that.
The other side of the dirt. I love
Yeah.
that.
So maybe I want to know that, you know. I just try.
I'm going to
you know,
steal that.
Yeah, feel free. I just made it up off the dome.
No, that's great.
No,
That's great.
I have a Google search set for him and for Terrence Howell and Tamara Taylor and the judge Margaret Chan. So I have that set. So whenever anything happens, it goes right to my inbox. And just I guess because the unfortunate part is they're all part of my story now.
Yep.
And
Right.
if anything happens, I just want to know about it. So so that's really it. But again, sometimes something good comes out of it, like your show.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the good news is he's probably not going to end up in the fucking Batman prison out in Colorado where they put like ADX Florence, the Supermax out there. If anybody ever like broke that prison open and
Be right back.
grabbed everybody out of it, it's basically supervillains. I did an episode on that too. Like that's where one of the Boston bombers I guess. Ted Kaczynski was in there. That's where they moved El Chapo to after they broke him out of that other one in Texas.
So it's Arkham.
Yeah, exactly. And they've got like the one of the founders of the Aryan Brotherhood is in there, and like a couple of like really high up members there. These are guys that like their yard time that they get, they walk from their cell across to another door and they get to walk around in a 12 by 12 room for an hour and then they go back to their cell. The only time they ever see daylight is when they go to the hospitals.
Wow.
Like that is legitimately a supervillain prison. It's fucking
like
crazy the people that are in there.
Yeah.
No.
It's crazy.
Oh.
Yeah.
So anyway, wrap it up.
Yeah, I gotta head to bed here shortly.
Okay, I wasn't sure because, I'm sure you realize, Joe. I'm sure you noticed I drink beer when I do the podcast. So
Yeah, I know it's part of the title. So
yeah, so it kind of goes with the territory, but also frequent breaks occur.
Oh,
as
sure.
well.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Well, I always make sure I pee before I do this. So I'll have to go once we hang up, but it's all good.
well,
I'll
I
tell
do
you the
too,
one-
but
The one I can't figure out is like, so they give us lunch at work. They feed us. So we get whatever is going through the lunch line. Without fucking fail, every Friday when we decide, like the maintenance guys, we go down to the bar for like have 3 or 4 beers. Every single Friday they feed us asparagus.
Oh,
And then I go and have 4 beers and I'm like, this is a war crime.
wow.
Somebody needs to tell the kitchen staff, don't put fucking asparagus out on Fridays because we go out drinking. Just
Oh,
stop.
That's wow.
It's rough,
Oh,
man. I was like, God, why would you do this to me?
Yeah.
Why would I do this to me? Because I have control over what I eat, but
Well, you can't let them affect your beer consumption later.
this is true.
You got to teach them a lesson.
yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go next time. I'm gonna stop at work on the way back through and piss there. You can deal with this on Monday.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So anyway, thanks a lot for listening, everybody. We appreciate it. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Joe.
Anytime.
This was amazing. God, you're awesome guy. It was a blast. Unexpected. It's always unexpected when this happens, and when it happens, I am like totally stoked. So
Excellent hat, by the way, too. I've been meaning to mention that.
Oh,
I know, make hockey violent again. I've seen that.
well, it's a buddy of mine. He owns a sports bar, Moonshine Grill, Moonshine Barbecue out in Seattle. So he's an ex-player. He sells these hats. He sent me one. So it's my go-to hat right now.
Hell yeah.
So, but yeah, guys, listen, this was a blast. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. And if you ever want to chop it up again, I'm more than willing to it. Just let me know.
Definitely, I'll
Absolutely.
follow you. I'll friend you on Facebook and everything. We'll stay in touch. This episode will air a week from this coming Wednesday night.
Okay.
I'm,
Perfect.
I'm,
Like
I'm
the
just gonna
19th.
I'm just gonna you know I'm just gonna release it as the week's episode. At as opposed to like a special feature like I normally do. I just don't have time right now. I'm like 2.5 weeks away from changing careers and stuff like that. So it's like I have an episode that you know, well, I have to edit an episode, and then this will give me some time because I'll actually wind up with two. So I'll just release this one, a week later. So
Sounds good.
Perfect.
I'll get to 150 numbered episodes eventually.
Oh shit! I
But
got to do that still.
Excellent.
but
Excellent.
no, but like the features episodes and everything, I don't count them in my
Okay.
numbered episodes.
Yeah, because I still owe you a story for that, so I got to get on that.
But yeah, it doesn't make anything. I like to differentiate it so people realize it's two separate things. It's
Yeah.
like if it's CKCB features, it's an interview. So I mean so that's why I do that. That's why I like to differentiate. But anyway, thanks a lot for listening. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Kevin. And until next week, later.
Bye.
Say bye, Joe.
Oh, bye, Joe.
Oh shit.